My name is Alina. I never thought I would fall in love after marriage, especially not with someone I barely knew before saying I do. But sometimes life surprises us in the softest ways. I was 24 when my parents arranged my marriage with a man named Aaron. He was calm, respectful, and carried a quiet confidence. We didn't talk much before the wedding, only a few polite conversations arranged by our families. He was a software engineer working in Austin, Texas. I was finishing my degree in literature. The wedding was beautiful, filled with laughter, family, and cultural traditions, but inside me I felt nervous. I barely knew him. I was stepping into a new life with a stranger. Our first few weeks together were quiet. He respected my space, never forcing any conversation or closeness. At first, I thought it was awkwardness, but slowly I realized he was simply being patient. One day, while I was struggling to cook something new, I accidentally burned the dish. I felt embarrassed. But Aaron came into the kitchen, laughed softly, and said, "Well, I guess today we order pizza." That was the first time I saw his smile genuinely lighten the room. That small moment, that shared laugh, stayed in my heart. He never rushed me to become someone I wasn't. He noticed my love for books and surprised me with a small bookshelf in our apartment. One evening, I found a handwritten note on it. "I hope your stories find a home here just like you found one with me." I read that line over and over. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, we began to open up more. We'd sit on the balcony in the evenings, talking about our dreams, childhood memories, favorite music. He shared how he missed his grandmother's garden, and I told him about the swing in my backyard where I used to read poetry. I began to see the little things, how he always filled my water bottle before going to bed, how he never interrupted when I spoke, how he listened with his whole presence. And somehow, those little things grew into something bigger. One rainy evening, I was watching the raindrops hit the window. Aaron came and stood beside me. Without a word, he handed me a cup of warm cocoa. That silence, soft, comforting, felt more powerful than 1,000 words. I looked at him and smiled. He smiled back. No promises, no grand declarations, just quiet understanding. And that was the moment I knew I was falling in love, not with a stranger anymore, but with my husband. The realization that I was falling in love with my husband didn't come with fireworks or loud music. It was quiet, like a soft melody playing in the background of everyday life. And once I noticed it, I started seeing him in a new light, not as the man I was told to live with, but as the man I chose to care about. Aaron and I had started a routine. We'd have breakfast together, sometimes silently reading or scrolling on our phones. But those silences became comfortable. I started looking forward to even the smallest interactions, like when he'd gently remind me to take a break from my laptop, or when he'd share a funny meme during lunch just to make me laugh. One Saturday morning, we planned a short road trip to a nearby nature park. I remember the sunlight streaming through the car window, music playing low, and the way he glanced at me while driving, as if making sure I was okay, even in silence. We stopped by a lake, and as we sat there watching the still water, I asked him, "Did you ever expect love to feel like this?" He looked thoughtful for a moment and replied, "No, but I think the best kind of love is the one you build, slowly, brick by brick, like this." Those words touched something deep in me. It was never about grand gestures with Aaron. It was the small things. When I caught a cold, he made me soup and stayed up all night just to check my temperature. When I had a tough day, he didn't ask too many questions. He just sat beside me, played soft music, and said, "I'm here." We started sharing hobbies too. He introduced me to puzzles, and I got him interested in poetry. One evening, I recited a poem I wrote about the feeling of unexpected companionship. He didn't say anything right away, but he looked at me for a long time and then said, "You wrote that about us, didn't you?" I nodded. He reached over, gently placing his hand on mine. No words, just connection. My favorite moment came on a Sunday afternoon. The weather was perfect. I was reading in the living room while he worked on his laptop. Out of nowhere, he said, "You know, Alina, I never told you this, but I used to be afraid of marriage. I thought it would feel forced. But with you, it just feels like home." I felt a lump in my throat. I smiled, got up, and sat next to him. I didn't say much. I just leaned my head on his shoulder, and we sat like that for a while. Two people, quietly realizing they were becoming each other's safe place. Over time, our bond deepened. It wasn't about passion or dramatic romance. It was about respect, friendship, and emotional safety. The kind of love that doesn't rush but patiently grows. One evening, while doing laundry together, I laughed about how unromantic married life seemed on the outside. Folding clothes, arguing about what to eat, choosing laundry detergent. Aaron smiled and said, "But isn't this the most romantic thing? Being real, being together, and still laughing through it?" And he was right. Because I wasn't just living with him anymore. I was living for the little moments we created together. Months passed, and by now, Aaron and I had become a part of each other's world in ways I never imagined. What started as an arranged connection had bloomed into something beautiful. A partnership built not just on shared space, but shared hearts. One evening, we were walking through a quiet street lined with trees that had just started changing color. Autumn had arrived, and with it, a peaceful kind of stillness. I looked at him and said, "It's strange. I feel like we were meant to meet this way. Not as lovers at first, but as strangers learning to become something more." He nodded, his eyes soft. Falling in love slowly. It feels more real, more lasting. It was in these quiet reflections that I saw how deeply we had grown. Not just in understanding, but in trust. We had disagreements, of course, small misunderstandings about groceries, schedules, or weekend plans. But what amazed me was how calmly Aaron handled them. No raised voices, no silent treatments, just patience, listening, and always ending with a simple, "Let's figure this out together." That line, "together," became the center of our story. One night, we went back to my childhood town for a family gathering. As I introduced Aaron to my cousins and neighbors, I realized how naturally he fit in, helping my uncle fix a light, chatting with the kids, even sharing a few of his favorite recipes with my aunt. Later that night, we sat under the stars, the air cool, wrapped in a soft silence. I whispered, "You've become my favorite part of life." He looked at me and replied, "And you've become the reason I look forward to every tomorrow." It was never just about romance for us. It was about the quiet support. When I started a new job and felt nervous, he stayed up helping me prepare. When he had long office hours, I left him notes with encouraging words and his favorite snacks. These weren't grand love letters, but they were our way of saying, "I see you, I care." One day, while sorting through old photos, I found one from our wedding. I looked so uncertain in that picture. But now, years later, I realized the best part of our story wasn't the wedding itself. It was everything that came after. The late night talks, the Sunday grocery runs, the silly arguments about which movie to watch, the way we grew, changed, and chose each other every single day. On our second anniversary, Aaron surprised me with a journal. Inside, he had written one sentence for every day we had spent together. 730 small notes, filled with gratitude, humor, and love. One of the entries said, "Day 241. You smiled in your sleep today. I didn't wake you up. I just watched and felt lucky." As I read through those pages, tears welled up in my eyes, not because of sadness, but because I never imagined love. I turned to him and said, "I think I'm more in love now than I've ever been." He pulled me close and replied, "That's the beauty of this. We didn't fall in love before marriage. We chose to fall after, and we keep choosing every day." And that's how my story became a timeless reminder that sometimes love doesn't arrive with a spark. Sometimes it builds slowly, through respect, through friendship, through patience. And sometimes the best love stories are the ones that begin after the wedding bells have stopped ringing.